So Moses, Jesus, and this old man go golfing one day. And they go up to the first hole, and there's a water hazard in front of the green, right? And Moses walks up there and takes his shot right into the water. Right? So Moses just walks up to the water and just raises his arms and splits this water just like the Red Sea, walks up there and just chips it right onto the green, right? And there he goes. So then it's Jesus' turn. So Jesus tees off, boom, and it's headed straight for the water. So Jesus just runs, walks on the water, and then just chips it right up onto the green, right? And the old man's just looking around like, so he takes a shot, again, right into the water, but his ball just gets immediately swallowed by a fish. And then the fish is like swimming around, he's trying to figure it out, and an eagle comes and picks up the fish. And the eagle's trying to get away, and at that time, a hunter sees this bird, shoots the bird. So the fish falls from the sky, lands right on the green, the ball pops out of the fish's mouth, and it goes into the cup. And Jesus says, Dad, we're going to stop bringing you if you're going to play like this. Sometimes the ends justify the means, right? Or the means justifies the end. We've been going through the story of David, and we've learned quite a bit about him, I would say. In the first part of our series, we learned that he was this stellar dude, that he had a heart after God's heart, that he did everything right. When Saul wanted to kill him, he didn't retaliate, even though he could have. You know, he let Saul live. And he did all these really great things, brought the ark back and got the Jerusalem retaken, and everything was going so well until he kind of slipped up. And when the kings were supposed to go to war, David decides to stay home, and the trajectory that David was on changes very suddenly. And now we've got this thing with Bathsheba and Uriah and all this other stuff. And Nathan tells him the sword will never leave your home. That's his curse. So David knows that for the rest of time, he's always going to be dealing with some sort of strife in his home. He also lost the son that Bathsheba was giving birth to, which of course was terrible. He got depressed. All that sort of stuff happened. And then it said that he will be publicly disgraced. Publicly he will go through disgrace. Well, last week we talked a little bit about how the sword was never going to leave his home. And we talked about Absalom, who had come back and was standing outside of the gates of the city. And as people approached the city with their troubles, with their worries, as they would usually go to the king, Absalom would say, the king's not home. You should just talk to me. Wouldn't it be better if I were the king? And he turned the hearts of these Israelites toward himself. And when David got word of that, he left the city and kind of let Absalom take over. And we just talked about how the younger generation, we need to be a little more responsible about how we start implementing new and cool ways to do things, because trying to tear down that which is already there is not the way to get there. So if we want to have chairs instead of pews, that's fine, but don't say all the things that are terrible about having pews, that pews are somehow wrong or they're a sin or whatever. There's nothing wrong with pews, there's nothing wrong with chairs. We just use chairs because it gives us a lot more flexibility and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But attacking the older generation is not the way. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back in time. All right, we did this one with Absalom, and I had told you that Absalom had been away for a while and had just come back. And when he came back, that's when he did his little 4-year plan to supersede David. So what we're going to focus on today is how Absalom came back to Jerusalem. How did we get him from wherever he was back? And then we're going to go back in time even more in future weeks. We're going to find out why he left in the first place. So basically, I'm telling this whole story out of order. But it makes more sense because Father's Day is coming, and that's going to be a better sermon. So today we are going to talk about why Absalom came home. And the deal is he's been gone, and he's going to come back. We're going to be in chapter 14 of 2 Samuel. So if you want to follow along, you can. Otherwise, I will put it up on the screen for you. Just understand that basically Absalom is banished. He's banished from Israel. He cannot be there for something he has done. And it's something he did to his brother and to his children and all these other sorts of stuff, which again shows you the sword never left David's house. But so Absalom has been banished, and we're going to get into this story. And what I want us to think about is, were the means that were used to get Absalom back, did they justify the ends? And I think it's something that we have to be very, very careful about in our Christian walk, in our church walk. We want everyone to be saved. I think we could all say that, right? We want everyone to meet Jesus. And sometimes we want it so badly that we may even mistreat people and say, what are you doing? Get it right. Or maybe some people in some places, I don't want to say it's anyone in here because I'm sure we've never done it, but maybe we sacrifice a little truth to get the person to come to Christ, because we just want them to come to Christ. But then they're thinking something that isn't true. Have we tricked them into it? How has that happened? So let's just keep that in mind about the ends justifying the means as we hear about this story. And you'll recognize some of the characters in the story. And we're just going to start in chapter 14, verse 1. And if you remember this guy, Joab, he's the general. He's the one that David sent the letter to go ahead and kill Uriah. And then later on, he sent a letter to David. And so Joab, he's still around, and says, Joab, son of Zeruiah, knew that the king's heart longed for Absalom. Who's the king? David. Right, let's make sure we're keeping track. David's heart longed for his son. So David had banished his son because of what had happened, but he wanted his son back. So Joab decides to cook up a plan. I don't know why this is doing this to me. He's going to cook up a plan to try and get David's heart fixed. Okay, so why is he doing it? Because David's heart is longing for his son. All right, so if you understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to help David. So Joab sent someone to Tekoa, a nearby place, and had a wise woman brought from there. Wise woman. You probably read that and you think just someone who's really smart. Think more like 1940s mobsters, like a wise guy. Huh, wise guy? Maybe someone that's good at acting, very good at manipulation, very good at talking to people. So he went and found a clever person. Maybe that's a better word, a clever person. So had the woman brought from there. And he said to her, pretend you are in mourning. Dress in mourning clothes and don't use any cosmetic lotions. Act like a woman who has spent many days grieving for the dead. Then go to the king and speak these words to him. And Joab put the words in her mouth. So we're about to put on a little show here, aren't we? Is she actually mourning for anybody? No. Is she gonna, she's putting on a show, right? Joab is trying to help David. Remember, he's trying to help David, but he's going to kind of use a different sort of means here, isn't he? To the point where he even tells her what to say. This is what you're gonna say. And Joab put the words in her mouth. So when the woman from Tekoa went to the king, she fell with her face to the ground to pay him honor. And she said, help me, your majesty. So the game is afoot, all right? We've got a woman here dressed in her mourning clothes, crying, not wearing any sort of good-smelling lotions. I'm mourning. Please help me, your majesty. And no one's going to be like, get out of here. I think you're faking, right? Tell me what's wrong, right? This woman is in trouble. So the king asked her, what's troubling you? And she said, I'm a widow. My husband is dead. Lie. I, your servant, had 2 sons. They got into a fight with each other in the field, and no one was there to separate them. One struck the other and killed him. Now the whole clan has risen up against your servant. They say, hand over the one who struck his brother down, so that we may put him to death for the life of his brother whom he killed. Then we will get rid of the heir as well. They would put out the only burning coal I have left, leaving my husband neither name nor descendant on the face of the earth. Do you understand what her problem is? She had 2 sons, and one of them had a baby, so she has a grandson. The 2 sons were in a fight. One killed the other. The punishment for murder? You put him to death. So they're going to kill the other son, and they want to take the grandson. Her husband's dead, so that means his line stops. You see how disturbing this is? Now, is any of this true? No. Okay, just a wise woman who put on some clothes and told a story. But it's a good story. It's going to pull at your heartstrings, right? You're like, oh man, maybe we shouldn't just totally go all the way over the top on this, right? So this is what's in David's head. Wow, what a terrible story. You're right. I mean, you already lost one son. Now you're going to lose the other and your grandson. That sounds pretty like a bummer, right? So the king said to the woman, go home, and I will issue an order on your behalf. But the woman from Tekoa said to him, let my lord the king pardon me and my family, and let the king and his throne be without guilt. So instead of just issuing a decree and saying, don't touch this guy, she wants him to straight up pardon her. Pardon the boy, say that no harm done, there's nothing to, not just don't attack him, but he has done nothing wrong. Forgiveness, pardon, whatever word you want to use here, right? That's what she's wanting. So, and then you don't have to feel bad about issuing a decree not to follow the law, so that you'll be without guilt, we'll be free. Just pardon us. Just pardon our family, please. The king replied, if anyone says anything to you, bring them to me, and they will not bother you again. Oh, that's nice, David. Thank you. She said, then let the king invoke the Lord his God to prevent the avenger of blood from adding to the destruction so that my son will not be destroyed. Do you see why they called her a wise woman? This is some weird verbiage she's using around. You're like, oh, come on, then do this and use God on your side, because if you use God, she's saying all the right things to kind of get in David's head here, right? All the right things will not be destroyed. As surely as the Lord lives, he said, not one hair of your son's head will fall to the ground. She got him to decree what she wanted, which is, I'm going to help you, lady. I'm going to help you. I'm going to save your son. I know he killed somebody. I know he did something that was wrong, but I am going to help you, right? You said all the right things, and I'm going to respond. We don't really know why she wants him to pardon a person that doesn't exist. Right? We understand this isn't a real story. There is no dead husband. There is no dead son. So she's trying to get him to say these things, but that's not her end game, is it? Remember, what was Joab's end game? To help David, who is mourning for his son. But we're going to put on this whole show. Please help me. My husband's dead, and my son killed my other son, and gets David to say, I will do it. I will help your imaginary son. Then the woman said, let your servant speak a word to my lord the king. So this is just a very clever way of saying, now, king, thank you. Can I say something else? Can I just say one more thing? And he says, sure, speak, he replied. The woman said, why then have you devised a thing like this against the people of God? When the king says this, does he not convict himself? For the king has not brought back his banished son. Aha, the game becomes aware. Like water spilled on the ground which cannot be recovered, so we must die. But that is not what God desires. Rather, he devises ways so that a banished person does not remain banished from him. Again, she's got the right idea here. I think we're getting closer to the correct means to this end. Hey man, you're willing to forgive this guy, but your own son is being banished right now. Why will you forgive this person you've never met and you won't forgive your own son? Now, I understand we all live, we all die, we all have to deal with what happens. But even God doesn't want us to remain banished from him. He wants us to have a relationship with him, to go to heaven, right? These are the right things to be saying. She's kind of started with some weird stuff with lies and has come to the truth. The truth is you've banished your own son. The truth is you've done something that you yourself would not do to a stranger, but you do it to your own son. Pause. This happens today in your families. You would have more patience for someone else than you would have for your own family, because your own family has run up against you so many times, or your friend, or whatever, someone they've been the problem their whole life, so I have no patience for that. The best example I can give you is if you were to ask me to do the children's program for a week. Right? And on the way to church, I'm trying to get Seth ready, let's say, and I'm yelling at him, right? Get your shoes on, get your belt on, let's go, it's time to get to church. No patience for his, whatever he wants to say back to me or anything else. Then we get to children's church, and I say, okay, let's all play. And one of the kids is just being a turd, right? He's just talking back. But I just go, hey, Johnny, come on, buddy, come on. And I sit down and I talk to him. And all this patience for this kid, it's not mine, right? But for my son, shut up. Sit in the corner, be quiet. Oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, good to see you, right? We treat our own sometimes worse than we treat strangers. We have this desire to help people, but then when we look in our own backyard, those aren't the people I want to help. I've already tried helping them. But I'll help someone I don't know. Well, they could be a mass murderer. They could be a liar. They could be a woman that doesn't even have a son and a husband. You don't know who you're forgiving. So then she makes this point. Don't do this to your own family when you're willing to help a stranger. I think this makes sense, right? She got to the end. She just used an interesting means, right? Kind of a weird way to get there. But when she got there, she finally was able to land on this very true point. You're doing it for a stranger and not for your son. This is not God's example for us. God's example is even if you have a problem, even if you make a mistake, he still wants to redeem you. He still wants to bring you back. He still has forgiveness for you. And Peter said, sir, how many times shall I forgive my brother? 7 times? No, 7 billion times, okay? Never stop. God does not stop. Why are you stopping on your own child? Now you just fill in the blank on where this, on your own coworker, on your own friend, on your own wife, on your own husband. that you don't have the forgiveness, you don't have the patience, you don't have and then we say, we are Christians, we follow God, except for this one thing where God will always forgive me, but I will not always forgive my brother. That's not a very fair line to draw there, folks. And this is what they've done to David. They've put him in a situation to make him realize something. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when Nathan showed up to David? David had just done this thing where he got Uriah killed and he had married Bathsheba. And Nathan walks up to David and he says, there was once a rich man with lots of sheep and a poor man with only one sheep. And the rich man took the poor man's sheep, and now the poor man doesn't have a sheep anymore. And David's like, that rich man should get in trouble. Blah, 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 blah. And Nathan says, you're the rich man. Well, was Nathan lying when he told that story? No, because he was telling it as a story. He didn't come and say, there is a rich man over there in that house that did it. So Nathan did it a little bit differently. But this is almost like a live action parable. She came in, she made a song and dance, right, to get him to reach a place in his mind where he could understand something. This is what some people are trying to do effectively, correctly, the correct means, some people are trying to do to reach the lost generation. If you guys were here yesterday, or if you look at Facebook, that boy that was up on top of the ladder, I don't know if you were here, you would have seen him. He's kind of a younger guy, and he's up on top of the ladder. He was doing all the ceiling tiles. You may not have noticed, but we had ceiling tiles that were all wet and gross, and he got up there on this really tall ladder, and he replaced them all. His favorite thing to do, if you end up being Facebook friends with him, is he's a Christian rapper. And actually what he says is, I'm not a Christian rapper, I'm a Christian who raps. Which is cool. I like that idea. And he'll just, I don't know how familiar you guys are with rap, but he'll just like get on Facebook Live and just be like, I've been working on this, and he'll just spit for 45 seconds. And it's good. Or he'll just put out the words, right? And it's good. It's good stuff. I don't want to listen to it. I'm not a rap person. Okay? And if I brought that to, let's say, my Quaker church where I grew up, where they didn't even want drums in the room, right? And say, hey, I've got John Paul here. He's going to share with you some music that he wrote, and he starts laying down some... Right? Not going to be that cool, okay? But maybe, not even maybe, definitely, that might reach someone more effectively than victory in Jesus. Well, no, I'd much rather, Rudy, wouldn't you much rather hear someone spit some sweet lyrics on Christian rap? Yes. Better than your 50, 60, 80, 100-year-old song. So some people are trying to find new, inventive ways to connect with the lost. That's okay. When we get to the point where we sacrifice truth, Jesus didn't really live here. He didn't really raise again. It doesn't matter. He's a good teacher. Nope. Sorry. Christ, death, resurrection, fundamental. We need it. That is salvific. We have to say this is true. We don't take it away. Pastors need to keep telling people that hell is hot, right? Need to keep saying that Jesus is real. We cannot sacrifice truth to get people. But what we can do is sacrifice some of our own little things, pews, chairs, no stained glass windows. I mean, these are the things that I grew up on. Like, this is not a church. Where's the bell? I mean, when people get married, don't you have to ring a bell? Isn't that required that you ring a bell? There's no bell here, so this isn't a church. Well, sure it is. Sure it is. So creating ways to reach the lost is finding a means to an end. The difficulty, the charge, the thing that we have to keep in mind as Christians is that it must be led by the Spirit within us, not our own fleshly desire. Man, I really want them to be saved. Maybe if I just tell them that it's okay that they do this terrible thing. No, because truth cannot be sacrificed. Now, you can talk to people, you can bring them in, you can try to be relevant, but in the end, Jesus still is God. He still came to this earth. He died on a cross. He was dead for 3 days. He rose again. He went to heaven. He sent us the Spirit. That Spirit lives in me. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. And I know it. It's not a question. It's not something I worry about. It is absolute truth. And it can be truth for you. Maybe that story or that really old song I just sang isn't the way to get it to you. Maybe if we draw pictures, maybe if we do this, maybe if we do that, we find new and inventive ways, new means to the end. But when searching it, it must be done in the Spirit, in the Word. If we start getting away from this and just start thinking with this, we're going to get away from it. So we have to be careful about the means we use, but we should be thinking about those means. We should be thinking about how to reach the lost. Not just us four and no more. We're Christians, but I want them to be just like me. Well, then you're going to have a very small church. Like one person in it, because no one's just like you. Everybody's different. Everyone's going to respond to different things. Why not just sing the same 6 songs every week? I mean, if you like them, then let's just sing those ones. No, we sing different songs. We do different things to it. So it'll always be connected. So it'll always be real to different people. Means to an end. The end that Joab had in mind was to help David. The means he used was an acted out parable that got to this point so that he would understand this isn't just me telling you that you should forgive your son. This is me telling you that even God desires rather that when you die, you will be redeemed to him. He's not dead. He's just over there. Do something about it. Now here's what's awesome about this story. David's next response shows you that he might have been able to be tricked for a minute, but you can't trick somebody for too long. Like what did Kennedy say? You can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you cannot please all the people all the time. So you've been doing this charade pretty good, but what does this have to do with your dead son? Isn't your own son banished? Oh, hold on. You just took a left turn on your little story here. So here's David's response. Actually, she continues. And now I have come to say this to my lord the king because the people have made me afraid. Your servant, though, I will speak to the king. Perhaps he will grant his servant's request. That's how she's always just talking about herself. His servant is her. So perhaps he will grant my request. Perhaps the king will agree to deliver me from the hand of the man who is trying to cut off both me and my son from God's inheritance. And now your servant says, may the word of my lord the king secure my inheritance, for my lord the king is like an angel of God in discerning good and evil. May the Lord your God be with you. So she started with this thing about her son. She snuck in the stuff about his son, and then closed with, and thank you for fixing this thing with my son. Hoping that when she did this little sandwich, right, a little bit of means, a little bit of truth, and a little bit of means again, that maybe he wouldn't notice that she had lost her way. Then the king said to the woman, here it is, don't keep from me the answer to what I'm going to ask you. So he says, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to tell me the truth. She says, let the king speak, right? Okay, I'll give you the truth. The king said, isn't the hand of Joab with you in all of this? Boom, busted, gotcha. Did Joab do it? Did he send you in here? Come on. And the woman answered, as surely as you live, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right or to the left from anything the lord king says. Yes, it was your servant Joab who instructed me to do this and who put all these words into the mouth of your servant of me. Your servant Joab did this to change the present situation. My lord has wisdom like that of the angel of God. He knows everything that happens in the land. So this is a little bit of backpedaling here. Yeah, Joab told me to do it, and you're good, David. You're good. You got me. You have great discernment. Right? And man, nothing happens here that you don't know about. I'm sure at this point, David's just like, gag me. Right? Oh, okay, it's over. I got it. You're a wise guy, right? You got me. I understand what you're trying to tell me. Why don't you just cut with the other stuff for a minute? All right, thank you for the compliments, but I got you. Joab did this. Joab was behind this. Yes, Joab was behind it, but you're so great, and you're also good looking, and all right, I mean, who knows how far this woman goes to not get in trouble in front of the king. So the king David said to Joab, very well, I will do it. Go bring back the young man Absalom. Go get my son. Go get him. Joab fell with his face to the ground to pay him honor. And he blessed the king. Joab said, today your servant, that's me, knows that he has found favor in your eyes, my lord the king, because the king has granted his servant's request. So Joab went to Geshur, and he brought Absalom back to Jerusalem. But the king, David, said, he must go to his own house. He must not see my face. So Absalom went to his own house and did not see the face of the king. So David has come to a conclusion. You're right. I should not have banished my son. I screwed up. You did it in a shaky, shady way, but fine. Go ahead and bring him back. But I'm not ready to see him yet. Natural human response. Is David a superhero? No. He's just a dude. A dude who knew he made a mistake. A dude who's trying to rectify that mistake. Go ahead and bring Absalom back. That's fine, but don't bring him here. Let him just go home. Let him go home. And that is where it stays. We know what happens next because you were here last week. Absalom decides to go out in front of the city, decides to catch people coming in. Shouldn't I be the king? Shouldn't I be the king? Shouldn't I be the king? And David probably thinks, I really wish I wouldn't have let Absalom come back. But he made the right decision. It was a means to an end. As Christians in this world, in this walk, we are often set up with the opportunity to evangelize, to share God with other people. What means are we using to do that? How often are we falling into our own flesh-like, weak ways of doing it? Oh, you should come to church because you get free food when you come to church. Well, how about you get free salvation when you come to church? How about you get to meet Jesus and you get to meet people that Jesus loves, which includes you? Yes, there are ways we can do this, and there's nothing wrong with having free food. In fact, we have a birthday cake out there. We're all about to go eat it. So there's nothing wrong with that, but using the means to the correct end. What is the point? To get people saved. Is the point butts in the seats? Is that the point? No. The point is getting people to meet Jesus. If we start building programs and using means to get butts in the seats, well, then we'll just turn into a movie theater. I'll have a magician come up, he can do some magic shows, and we'll have a little concert action, and we'll never say Jesus' name, and as long as we can take an offering at some point, we can call it church, right? No. Truth cannot be sacrificed, but we can find means to an end when we evangelize. As long as it's rooted in the Word, and guided by the Spirit. And the only way to be guided by the Spirit is to be saved, to be in communion with God, to pray without ceasing, to worship with all your might, to use the discernment and the gifts that He has given you. When we are in the situation for evangelism, let the Spirit lead, and understand that there may be very many different means to an end. If the goal is to let people meet Jesus Christ, and there is no greater goal. That is our charge. Go out into all the earth, baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey the things I've commanded you. And I'm going to go, and when I come back, you're coming with me. What a promise from Christ. What was part of that promise? Go, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey the things I've commanded you. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Someone smacks you in the face, turn to their cheek. Those are the things He commanded us to do. Stay in here, lead through the Spirit, and we'll go out there and we will reach people and we will show them Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for your presence here this morning. We thank you for your word. We thank you for examples like Joab and the wise woman and David who found new means to an end that we know you were calling him to do. Help us to turn around and look at our own lives, to look in the mirror and say, are we redeeming those in our own lives? Help us to look at how we come toward people and try to tell them about Jesus Christ and His love, that maybe you could show us new and inventive ways that show truth, that show passion, that show an open invitation from Jesus Christ into their hearts. Help us to do lots less of us and way more of you as we do that, Lord. I ask you to bless us as we leave this place, that we will not fall out of our head, that we will not fall out of our heart, that we have a charge to go out to the world and show them Jesus Christ and His love. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for your Spirit. We ask you to bless the time we're about to spend as we celebrate birthdays. We love you. We praise you. We glorify you, for you are worthy of it all. We pray these things in Jesus' name. And all God's people said,